planet Earth, our home. Most humans live their lives day in and day out without even questioning the fact that they are living on a living and breathing planet. Most people have completely severed their connections to nature. Dating back thousands of years, there are even recorded accounts of people living completely surrounded in nature and living day in and day out with that sacred communication that we ourselves have lost. But what if I told you that there are ways that you yourself can go out and connect with nature? That you yourself can rekindle the ancient knowledge that our ancestors held. Every day, more and more people begin to wake up to the powers of the earth. We are here to talk about the importance of connecting with the earth and connecting with different cultures. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jack, and I am excited to present to you, finally, 3 years in the making, Ecotours for Cures, a retrospective journey. Now, I had the privilege and the honor to go on 3 of these ecotours. To say the least, I went for the first time back in 2018 as a filmmaker, came back a wildlife enthusiast, a nature enthusiast, and I made it from then on my life mission to learn as much as I can about this beautiful planet, not just the animals, not just the plants, but how the world works, how the earth works, and how we are deeply rooted and connected to it as we ourselves being a part of the earth. So I'm very honored and excited to share this documentary with you. We're going to go talk to some amazing people, the people who founded Ecotours for Cures, their mission, what Ecotours for Cures stands for, and reconnecting us to our ancient selves, which is deeply rooted in our connection to the earth. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Ecotours for Cures. Now that we've arrived at our destination, why don't we talk to some people and see what they have to say about Ecotours for Cures.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eugene Zampieron. I'm a licensed naturopathic physician and professional herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild. And I'm also chief ethnobotanist of Ecotours for Cures, a company that does excursions into the heart and soul of Jamaica. I had an opportunity in high school. I went to Ward Melville High School in Setauket, New York, and I had an opportunity to study with Dr. Irwin Ernst, the late Dr. Irwin Ernst, and he had a course in advanced biology. So I took the course, and that was because I had studied marine biology with Dr. Ernst at a summer course at West Meadow Beach in Long Island. And I just fell in love with snorkeling and marine science, and also looking at some of the plants that lived along Long Island too. It wasn't just about, those other things. So then an opportunity came that he had a trip to Jamaica, and it was about $500 for 3 weeks. And high school, you go down with your high school class. So I was like, I asked my parents, and I had made some extra money, and they said, yeah, you can go. So then I remember the getting off the plane, and that was my first plane ride, by the way, ever. First plane ride. And we landed in Jamaica, and we were all huddling in a little nucleus around the airport, and they were loading the buses with our luggage. We had 20 students and chaperones come down in Kingston, and then they looked at the mountains and said, "Rain, man," and so they had to like bring all the luggage inside, and we were crammed up. And I remember driving through the mountain roads in Castleton. I never had experienced anything like that living in New York, and then we were listening to this Bob Marley CD, Uprising, had just come out, and I had been listening to some Bob Marley, but I hadn't heard that one, and it really transfixed me into his music there. So then we got here to Strawberry Fields, and I just couldn't believe the stunning natural beauty, the ocean, the reef, the plants, and the freedom. We were 18 years old and had this beautiful oasis to study and learn about the culture. And I soon realized that what was more interesting about Jamaica was not only the native plants and of course the reefs, the coral reefs, which were very healthy at the time, but the people. I found the people so interesting and started to immerse myself in meeting people, and had a wonderful experience here for 3 weeks, which really changed my whole life about travel, education, knowledge, learning about biology. And so I decided back then I wanted to become a marine biologist. So I went to pursue that at SUNY Stony Brook and worked under Dr. Hechtel and other illustrious folks that had their PhD in sponges and coelenterate, and learned and minored in marine invertebrate zoology. But every time I wanted to go back to Jamaica. And so before I went to college, my friend Mike Daum went and said, I'm going back down there again. I'm like, really? You're going back down so soon? He goes, yeah, I made it. Remember Jamba? We met Jamba down there. There's a whole story about how we met Jamba, but he goes, yeah, and I'm going down there. And I'm like, wow, tell me how it goes, because I want to go next time. And so that's kind of how it went when Mike came back. In one piece, yeah, it was just like, wow, I got to go back there and study and immerse myself in that. Again, I still wasn't really interested in herbs at the time as a professional. So that's kind of how my first memories of trip. Lots of hiking on the black sand beach and going to waterfalls, and just great, really awesome.
We were in a few classes together over the years, from elementary to high school graduation, occasionally parring during that period of time. Dr. Ernst's AP Bio class at Ward Melville High School in 1981 offered a field trip to Jamaica West Indies as part of the course. Dr. Z and I, along with dozens of other students, flew to the island for a truly transformative week. Dr. Irwin J. Ernst is the man responsible for nurturing our passion for nature, plants, the sea, Caribbean culture, and even reggae music. Dr. Z and I traveled back a few times to Jamaica on our own after Doc retired. At that time, I was studying marine life, and Dr. Z gravitated more toward plant medicine. Jamba was our mentor in Jamaica, and we traveled all over the island with him, learning so many valuable life lessons.
It's going to be a nice trip. Beautiful day. It's Friday the 25th. Mikey's going to be playing the show later.
Yeah. Right when it's boy the face.
What is that good for?
People who are bad period. A lot of use.
And how do you say it?
Wrong go to rational. It's good. It's a good medicinal plant.
Can you see the flower?
Bad period and things like that.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in on it. How I met Jamba, well, that was kind of interesting. So one day I brought a group of the students on the trip to the Bat Caves down the road here in Jamaica, and so we went to the Bat Caves, and all of a sudden we got lost, and it was getting to be dark, and we didn't bring flashlights. The Jamaicans call it a rat bat cave, and we were like scrambling because the geology was so interesting. You know, Jamaica's like an old coral reef full of limestone, and there were all kinds of caves, and we were, you know, young and fit and wanted to do the caving, but we kind of got lost. I brought the students there. I got disorientated, and it was getting dark, and we're like, how are we going to get out of here? But we finally made it out, walked back, and by the time we got home, dinner was finished. There was no food for us starving 18-year-old guys. And we had met a guy named Lloyd Scott, who was living at the point there with a group of Jamaicans, teaching them carving and all kinds of skills. And they would come down and, of course, sell their wares and interact with us during the reggae band that would come and play. And so Jamba said, yeah, we'll cook for you. Come up, have some Jamaican food. So that's how I met Jamba. And we ended up, Jamba's place was like the hopping place for all of us. Once we met Jamba, we'd all hang out at the point and watch the moon, and just a great gathering of people and cooking in the traditional Jamaican food in the outdoor pits, and wow, food that I never had before, fruits I never had before. It was great. And of course, the hospitality of Jamba, who never charged us a dime for any of these things,
Right, Jamba of the Maroons. What a fantastic person. And although he's not still here, hopefully you will have that picture of his face appearing in a fire. You probably will, because he's another one of those totally connected beings who's just functioning at a whole other level of reality and spirituality. So I feel so blessed to have met and been able to study with him so many years and years. Through meeting him with Dr. Zampieron, and we'd often go there together. I remember sitting on a place they called The Point, and I'm sure you'll have videos in here of The Point, and Jamba saying that his Duppy grandmother, who's considered a word they use, Duppy, for a ghost, his Duppy grandmother came to him in a dream and told him about me, and that I am a spiritual daughter of his, and that he should, with myself and also Dr. Z, specifically share the ancient knowledge of the Maroons, which, as you know, even now there are a lot of movements that these things should only pass down through genetically related tribal people, only to those people. But I'm telling you, I have had the experience several times in my life, as well as in my own highly integrated family, because I was married to an Afro-American man for years. He's the father of my children, grandfather of my children. So I've always lived in a very mixed cultural kind of society. And Jamba specifically asked us to write down and share his knowledge. And I know that Sun Bear also, who I studied with Sun Bear, the Native American elder, and he got a lot of flack for sharing a lot of the ancient Native American teachings with people who were not in his lineage, and that they shouldn't be allowed to teach it. But I think that entire concept is rather outdated when we look at the fluidity and the universal aspects, that we are all part of a universal family. And certainly those of us who are the plant people are really green. I mean, we're green if you want to look at a color. So I find that's a very limited concept, that you have to keep that knowledge only within your physical tribe, because I think that concept of tribe is so much more extensive. And that's why Jamba is able to travel through time and appear on film in a fire, because he's that kind of expansive being. So it was really just a wonderful thing. I certainly think everyone should honor their teachers, whoever they got this information from. Not to say, they decided this is medicinal or usable or spiritual, but we're all part of that giant tribal lineage, from my perspective and from my life experience.
Well, a couple of times I came by myself, finally, and I was doing some research in the marine biology, and Jamba took me up to Islington, and I happened to drink some water out of the stream, which he probably didn't want me to, and I got a very bad stomach ache, so bad, and I knew from my studies in biology that I probably had some dysentery or something going on. Back then, Imodium was a prescription. So I was like, oh man, my stomach hurts, I can't eat. And he noticed that I wasn't feeling well because I was using the toilet, and he goes, so I explained to him, I was kind of embarrassed. I said, I got a bad stomach, probably from the water. And the only thing I knew was Imodium, which was a prescription back then, right? You couldn't even get it. I'm like, where am I going to get? And I was like, going to go home because I was taking some marine independent studies in marine science at the time with Stony Brook. But he had a elder doctor who he kind of worked with called Papa Top, and he was an herbalist. Now I had a interest in herbs. My father was from Italy and told me stories of my grandparents growing up with herbs and never going to the doctor and using herbs. And then my mother was interested. My great-grandmother was an herbalist too and had all kinds of folk cures. So I was interested. So Papa Top took me into the woods. Back then I didn't really know what plants he was choosing, but he gathered sea grape and rock fern and all kinds of other like astringent, which I know now astringent herbs, which upon drinking these roots completely healed my stomach. And I was just blown away. Here I was, a science major, going maybe for my master's in marine science. And then I was like, wow, this guy knew more about herbs than anyone I've ever known, you know? And at that time, I didn't really know that Jamba was much of an herbalist too. Pop was really the one that was doing most of the work then. Then Pop died, and Jamba kind of started working a lot with the herbalists. I found out more about Jamba, that he was a maroon. Maroons are the people that live independent of regular Jamaicans up in the Maroon reservation and have their own place up there and have their own government and have shared secrets of herbal medicine with what they call science, which is this kind of African fet and this kind of spiritual knowledge that they realize is very important when they make medicine. So, I went back to the U.S. after the trip, and that's when like things in my life started to change. Like my advisor, Dr. Hector, said, if you're not going to go for your PhD in marine biology, maybe you should get interested in this herbal medicine that you've been talking about. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should. And then I learned about naturopathic medicine from a colleague of mine, one of my lab partners, whose brother got a catalog from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I found out that you can actually study for your doctorate and learn about herbs. And I was like, wow, I'm interested in herbs. And so that's kind of how it all fell into place. And I came back to Jamaica and said, Jamba, I'm going to be studying herbs in Washington. And I really didn't go back to Jamaica all those 4 years that I was studying for my doctorate in naturopathic medicine, but I always wanted to go back and apprentice with him. So I came back to Jamaica at one point, and I asked him, can I apprentice with you? And he said, and he dreamed that his grandmother's Duffy said it was okay to apprentice with him because usually the Maroons are very guarded in their herbal knowledge. So he invited me down for years and years to travel all through Jamaica, the Cockpit Country, the Blue Mountains, visiting the Maroon reservations and other places in Jamaica, the baths in St. Thomas. And I started to amass a lot of knowledge about Jamaican herbs and the chemistry, because I was of course studying to be a naturopathic physician, and naturopaths are the only licensed doctors who are board certified in herbal medicine, understand the chemistry, but also appreciate the ethnobotany and folklore of the medicine and the important stories behind the medicine. So every time I started to travel down to Jamaica to learn more and more, and I met famous Jamaican herbalists, and I started a radio program back in the States on herbal medicine, and that soon grew to be a book. And we decided to include a lot of the stories that Jamba told us about at least a dozen Jamaican herbs in my book, The Natural Medicine Chest, that I co-authored with my business partner, The Natural Nurse. And so that's kind of how I got my started and met Jamba, and then eventually took the leap to found Ecotours for Cures.
Finding out what a plant might be useful for comes through plant communication, but also through oral tradition, or in the fact of like a highly evolved natural medicine system like traditional Chinese medicine. It actually is studied and written down. And so it's transferred both ways. It's transferred through oral tradition, through spiritual tradition, through vision questing, and through trial and error and oral tradition. Now, if we get a message like, wow, I think this plant would really be good for blood because it's red, which is something called the doctrine of signatures. It's very interesting to note that that doctrine of signatures was noted by cultures all over the world where they thought, including Western herbal medicine, from European and Celtic and Druid, that they felt that a plant would remind them of something through its color or form that might be useful for the human body. Then they would go through the trial and error, which is trying it. And if everybody who tries it gets a rash, gets diarrhea, throws up, and drops dead, usually that's not going to become an oral culture to use this all the time, you see? So that's why those folkloric stories are so powerful, because if you're told that use this and it's worked, it does. So in terms of Jamaican culture, similarly, there's another teacher besides Jamba, a man who's younger than Jamba and still a teacher right now, Lyons. And he would go around saying that he got messages from the plants about what it might be useful for, and also when it's best to collect that plant. It's not just random. And again, in cultures all over the place, such as Rudolf Steiner and the entire biodynamic philosophy, they always talk about gathering plants at a particular time, like when the moon is waning, or when it's waxing, or when there's dew on the plant. And then when we actually gather it at that time now, first of all, just by trial and error, we find it has a more powerful effect. But when we go deeper into science and we measure the active constituents, we find out it has more of what we know to have the action at the cellular level if we do gather it at that time. So everything fits together, everything from shamanic influences to actually hands-on scientific data. It all really supports our communication with, the medicinal use of, and also, of course, hopefully maintaining the natural balance. Because I'll tell you a Jamaican story of out of balance. We were in Jamaica teaching a class on noni. Maybe many of you know noni. It's this mushy, smelly fruit that's highly medicinal and well studied scientifically. So I think Dr. Zampieron and I might have taught that class together. And who was in the classroom were all these Jamaican-born, highly trained pharmacists and physicians who had grown up as young children, were told by their nannies to use this for health, how to make the noni juice. And then they went off and became pharmacists and doctors, highly trained at big universities, and they wanted to get as far away as they could, which is often the case, of their traditional healing. So then some of them got back into natural medicine when they got older as a second wave of knowledge. So they are buying noni juice for $45 J, Jamaican dollars, in a glass bottle that's imported from the United States through a multi-level marketing firm. And they're drinking this stuff. And when we did the class on it, we said, you do know that that's this, you know, that grows on your trees? And they said, what? My grandmother always called that Duppy soursop. I never knew it was Morinda, the genus and species name of it. I mean, they had lost their attachment to the natural world so severely, even though they grew up with it. So we taught them that night, and they were all like, wow, we can't believe it. You know, we always used it, and now we're buying it, and we're spending so. We thought it smelled familiar. Then the weirdest thing is we all went to bed because it was like a 2-day conference. We get up in the morning. Dr. Z and I go outside. Every tree is completely stripped of every noni fruit by these pharmacists. And we were like so annoyed because they had no concept of sustainability, which is a really important factor in herbal medicine. In fact, that's one of the things that got me involved in bioenergetic medicine and gemstone therapy. Like you can see, I have some gemstones over there too, because I use that a lot in treatment protocols as well. And one of the reasons is that plants are somewhat renewable, but you really have a limit of how many of them you can gather in a year, or they become, wiped out and extinct. So by too many humans deciding they're going to use our wild plant allies for food and medicine, we can easily completely eliminate them if the consciousness of sustainability and spiritual and honoring is not really learned simultaneously.
That walk to the falls is spectacular, and not just the walk itself, and not just being in the forest and just seeing nature all around you, and then coming across this beautiful, beautiful natural wonder in the middle of the forest. Crystal blue waters, amazing. Just the presence and essence of this waterfall, you can feel it even as you're approaching it from like a half a mile away. You can just sense that we're coming up on something really sacred and really special. But not only just that, walking to the falls and learning about these plants through the eyes of the guys that come, the Rastas that come and teach us about their culture and teach us about their cultural uses of the plants, but Dr. Z himself. And Dr. Z, he totally draws you in, captivates you, pulls you in so that you are completely rooted and grounded in the now, the present moment, and you are there, and he is just a walking hub for learning. Such a knowledgeable person, probably the most knowledgeable person, him and Ellen, the two of them that I've ever met in this life. Very wise, and just hearing him talk about the plants and what he knows about the plants, and you can see the passion in his eyes. It radiates off of his being. There's just nothing like that. And me, I've never been a person that is able to fully grasp something in the confinement of a classroom. I've always needed to go out. Even when I'm teaching myself this stuff, I'll always get a field guide and I will go out into nature and try to find the things, because that's how I absorb this information. And that might not be for you, but for me, when I would go on these tours and I would ask Dr. Z all these questions over the course of the 5 or 6 days that we'd be there, seeing the passion radiate off of him is just miraculous, and I'm just honored to have been able to see it firsthand and to have been able to document it. So let's go ahead and let's look at some of the footage of our walk to the falls, and let's see what Dr. Z has to say about some of the plants that we will see.
They call it alpinia. So we use it for like moving blood.
Do you still use the root of it?
Yeah. One of the highest source of vitamin C. That one's a little... This is the acerola cherry. Yeah, try to like split it up and give it to everyone. So the root of that is like astragalus. It's used as an antiviral and chi builder. And it's in the same family as astragalus. Bidens pilosa. And good antiviral properties, pretty documented too. So we can make that as a tea. That'd be a nice tincture. It's called Spanish needle. Yeah. We get a lot in Florida, but it's really has similar properties as echinacea. Papaya is a very interesting tree, and generally what we do is slice this down to the skin and we get an expression. You can actually see the expression here of the latex. This is the well-known enzyme called papain. You see the papain dripping out now? So this will dry, and then you can make digestive enzymes at it, or you can take some of this papain and put it on a wart, or like putting it on my thing here, and then this will eventually just eat into the skin and remove those various actinic keratosis and other things like that. So that's how they collect digestive enzymes.
That looks like iodine.
Great. Thanks. So that'll dry into a bandit, waterproof. You'll see. Anyone else have a cut or anything like that? So this is hibiscus sabdarifa, which the Jamaicans call sorrel, and this has been the recent study of lots of research on hypertension, particularly, And they found that the reason why it helps hypertension is the flavonoids not only protect the arteries from damage, but also send a message to relax the arteries. We see these types of flavonoids found in like hawthorn berry, similar to that, and they send a message to the smooth muscle line in the arteries, and they act like what they call a calcium channel blocker, so that relaxes the muscle. And so this, the ethnobotany of this has just been used forever in Jamaica as a wine mostly. And what they do is they boil these leaves, they remove a lot of the flavonoids and the pigment, which would be probably other types of flavonoids, and then they make a wine out of it. So I think, and it's served during Christmas time, I believe. So it's really refreshing and delicious. Put a little ginger in it, and we're gonna make some. We're gonna boil some up and bring some back. Hey, Dr. Z here on Ecotours for Cures in Jamaica, and we're about to start our herbal fun shop in just a few minutes. And you can see here that we have a vast variety of local botanicals harvested, and we're going to process them into tinctures and salves and medicinal agents. Everything from Cerasee or Momordica to Jamaican allspice, McCarthy, bread nut, and sugar cane. My favorite for pain, the Jamaican dogwood or Placidia, pepper elder, memory bush, type of vervain, raw moon, and special mint, different sea mint, sea rosemary, guinea hen weed, which actually has been shown to have anti-cancer properties, devil's ass whip, also has a chemical called ectosterone to build muscle, well researched, lemongrass or fever grass, and what the Jamaicans call duppy basil or holy basil, an adaptogen, soursop, which is a nervine, relaxant nervine, Spanish needle, which is like the echinacea of Jamaica and helps with all kinds of virus, Biden's pilosa, guinea grass, tamarind, which is used in various sauces, like the Jamaicans type of barbecue sauce, leaf of life, aloe, and chest bush. So we're really excited to do our next phase of our Ecotours. We'll see you in a bit.
So you're asking about ecotourism or ecotourism, and Dr. Z and I have been doing that so many years. That's why we came up with that site, Ecotours for Cures, because there's a lot of different aspects of doing ecotours, but ours has always been the focus of communication with plant people and with plants. And one of the reasons I think it's so important is because from my belief system, we are all one family. We are all totally interconnected in terms of our home being the earth. And it's so important for us to honor whatever natural places are left and actually help rebuild places that have already been taken out of the natural environment. So by people going on a trip, first of all, it's fun. There's nothing wrong with fun. In fact, fun is really healthy. And that's part of it, getting away from your routine, getting away from being so into the electronic world, and really learning people to people that, hey, you know what, we all like this, and we all like music, and we like to dance, and oh, your music's different than my music, but we can love each other's music. And just from being such a multicultural life that I have lived, I think it really is so expansive.
So ecotourism is essential in that it teaches you life's lessons. What we are experiencing now in the world has been something that is necessary for so long, and the universe found a proper time to do it. We are in unprecedented times, obviously, and those of us who have been connected to the earth in a way that cannot be explained verbally felt this shift coming for a long time, feel the shift occurring now, and know that it has not ended until the earth has found justice.
Ecotourism. Now, the concept of ecotourism has been around for quite a long time. Since the beginning of human era, we have traveled out into the natural world with the intention of learning about it and bringing it back to our friends, our family, our people. And it's always been deeply rooted within our being, even down to the DNA, even receptors in our own body that are able to connect with chemicals in plants. That symbiotic relationship with nature and everything around us has always been there. Now, modern day ecotourism is interesting because back then in human history, we were connected to nature like it was second nature, and it was intuitive to us. We didn't have to blink twice. We just did it. It was ingrained in us. Now, we live in a society where we have been so disconnected from it for so many different generations, and each generation that continues to go, that connection continues to be severed until people are completely eventually unaware that they themselves, one, are nature, and two, have no idea of the beauty and magic that nature has to offer. So to me, ecotourism is going to be a step in the right direction for humanity, but also for us to rekindle the relationship to the earth and to help heal the earth. Going on a tour like Ecotours for Cures is life-changing. Me, I went as a filmmaker, and I came back as somebody who wanted to learn about the earth, who was eager to learn about the earth. And now, in 2022, going on 2023, I am now majoring in wildlife conservation at the University of Arizona. So to say that it changed my life would be an understatement, because it completely derailed my life in a beautiful way from the path that I was going down prior to 2018 and threw me onto the path that I know I was meant to be on in this life. And ever since that first tour and the tours that followed, my vision on the world has changed drastically. And I have so much gratitude for Dr. Z, Ellen Kamhi, because if it wasn't for you, I would not be on this path. So everything that I do, every film I make, every documentary I make, every tour that I eventually lead myself, I will bring at it that same grace that you both have brought to me when I have learned with you, when I have studied with you, when I have just interacted with you and seen the connection that you both have to nature. I have no words, so thank you so much. And I hope that this documentary is an expression of that gratitude that I have for you, because I really think that Ecotours for Cures is going to blossom into something so magnificent, and I am just so grateful that I got to be a small part of this journey. So Ecotours for Cures, everybody, go on our website, follow us on Instagram, on all social media, and keep yourself updated on when our next tour is going to be, because it's one of those tours that you might go in with one preconceived notion about what it's going to be and then arrive back home with a totally different view set on life. Go out, connect with nature, connect with the planet, connect with yourself, and most importantly, be kind to one another and be kind to nature. Thank you so much.